creature.
Yeah, what was that?
What the hell was he?
The hell was that
Anyway,
witch doctor
he
looking thing?
ate the end of the sweet potato, and I was just like, what?
And then he was like, "This is your grandfather's foreskin." And it's like y'all collect. Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Brian.
And I'm Tisha.
And we are Brian and Tisha React. And today we are going to do a movie review for Coming to America. And on this channel, we do reviews for movies and TV shows. We do reactions. We do a little bit of everything, as you know, whatever content we can get our hands on, basically. And so let's get started. Let's not belabor the moment too much longer. So with Coming to America 2, the big thing with this movie is that it's trying to live up to the original. The original movie came out in 1988. It had an amazing cast, and it's become a cult favorite. You know, everybody kind of like remembers it. It's an iconic movie. People can quote it. You know what I'm saying? So this movie had a huge shoe to fill, or shoes to fill. So I mean, I have a whole list of things, and Tisha has a whole list of things that she liked. And we have a whole list of things that we definitely did not like. So let's get started. So one of the things that I definitely liked was in the beginning of the movie, the first 4 minutes or so of the movie, you had the sparring scene where you had Akeem, of course, played by Eddie Murphy, who was sparring with his 3 daughters. Kiki Lane, these are like the actresses' names. Kiki Lane, Bella Murphy, and Akilah Love. I liked all 3 of those actresses, and I'm mention this when I get into the things that I didn't like. I didn't like that they didn't have more screen time, really, because I really felt like the best moments of this movie were when they were on screen. How did you like those 3? How did you like his daughters?
I really liked his daughters. They were really cool. All of them had all types of abilities. They were super smart. They knew all the history of Zamunda. They knew how to fight. It was just really interesting to see them in action. They did a really good job, I think.
Yeah, they did. I think they were standouts of the film, and that's why I wanted to see so much more of them. And I don't want to go into because one of the reasons why we didn't see more of them is one of the things that I didn't like about the movie. So I'm gonna save that for later. But yeah, dark skin. Well, one of his daughters was light skin, like her mother. So I liked the sort of the variation, and I think that's one of the things I also liked about the movie was, just the black cast. I love to see beautiful black actors and actresses in movies where they're not, I mean, the movie is a comedy, or at least it tries to be a comedy, but it's not they're not, portrayed in a demeaning sort of way, you know what I'm saying?
I was really impressed with the dress, the costumes, the outfits. All of them were incredible.
Right, exactly. Ruth Carter, that was another one of the things that I liked. She was the costume design person for that. And then she also worked on Black Panther. Some of you might remember her work from that. She worked on Selma. She if you actually pull up her filmography online, she has a whole list of projects that she's worked on where you're like, oh wow, she did the costume design for that movie and that movie and that movie. So yeah, the costumes, everybody looked amazing in this movie. So that was definitely a positive as well. There were a few moments in the movie that was funny. But the problem with this is
especially involving Simi and everybody getting mad at the things he would do.
Yeah, and I mean,
always screwing up something.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought it was funny how they kept bringing up the fact that his son, played by Jermaine Fowler, I think his name was, or is. How they kept calling him a bastard
son.
That was like, wow. I mean, because you think that's something that would be offensive, but it's like the way that they... It was
hilarious.
Yeah, the way that they actually did it was funny. I thought that... I mean, and they didn't drag it on for too long. It was a joke for maybe a few scenes, and then they didn't bring it up after that. So it's not something that they drug on for the entire movie, and then it just got old after a while.
Initially, when him and his mother walked in and they were being introduced to the other 3 daughters, they was like, hey, this is your bastard brother, for the youngest, and they went to the middle daughter and was like, hey, this is your bastard brother, and when it got to the oldest daughter, it was like, she's like, I already know. He was like, I already know I'm the bastard son from America.
yeah. I mean, there were funny parts in the movie, but again, the movie, compared to the original, it doesn't hold up in terms of the comedy. and like that was one of the things that I personally had an issue with. I'm not sure about Tisha. She might have liked the whole thing. How did you like the comedy? Like, I didn't, outside of maybe a handful of scenes, I don't know. What did you think?
I thought it was funny. Like, even just from the beginning with all the singing, all the old actors doing the things that they usually do, I thought it was funny.
Okay.
I laughed at a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like I said, like anything with Akeem and his daughters was stuff that I liked, because I really like that a lot. But since I brought that up already, I'm not going to stay on that too long. And then Tiana Taylor and Wesley Snipes, they stood out. Now, Tiana Taylor wasn't in that many. She was in maybe 3 scenes. The scene where she was first introduced, and then the scene where Akeem's son was supposed to marry her, but then he kind of but he ran off with his it wasn't his bather.
It was his groomer.
Yeah, his groomer.
She was cutting his hair and styling his hair.
And then the last scene she was in, so she had a kind of like a small role. But you know, the scenes that she was in were you know, she stood out, right? And then Wesley Snipes as well. Go ahead.
And that scene where they kissed, that outfit was super bad on her. Like, I really loved that outfit. Yeah, so she was good. She didn't have a lot of screen time, but she made use with what she had to use, if that makes sense. But yeah, and then Wesley Snipes, like, again, he was in a handful of scenes, but he had good comedic timing, I think. He was hilarious. You could tell that he was having fun with it.
Yeah, he was having a lot of fun.
And then his outfits and then his hairdo, I was just laughing at all of that the whole movie.
Michael Blackson, man, like, he had a very small role. Like, he was only in one scene, and that was the scene where Wesley Snipes was introduced, and he just made this very over the top. It was so over the top. It's kind of funny. That was one of the funny parts that I mentioned. I got a kind of like a chuckle out of it. I don't want to reenact it because I'm just gonna look crazy. But if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And then we mentioned the costume designer. I liked how they touched on Zamundan history. What did you think about that?
I thought it was cool, and especially when the bastard son from Queens was put to the test of whether he was going to be able to be a prince or not, and the youngest daughter was trying to school him on a history, and then he was just being funny with it.
Yeah. That
he was like
cool.
James Brown, Jaffa.
That was cool. That was cool.
Funny,
I like that.
Yeah. So I really liked that they went through that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's world building. So they did do one of the things, and I didn't even add this to my list, but one of the things they did well in this movie was world build. I was actually about to say Wakanda, but no, they did good world building for Zamunda. So that's something they didn't do in the first movie, because in the first movie, Zamunda was only in like the first 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, because the majority of the movie took place in America, but in this movie, the majority of the movie took place in Zamunda.
Right,
so
right.
You got to see a little bit more of the African side, and it was cool. I really liked that. It was unique.
Yeah, I liked it too. And then
Even though you could tell it was filmed in Atlanta.
Yeah, it was. You could tell. You could definitely tell. Like,
it was still good. It was still nice. I still liked it.
There was one part where Lavelle, played by Jermaine Fowler, who was Akeem's son, he was like walking into the woods where he was trying to get the lion whisker, and he had on this really hot looking jacket, and I'm like, I hope it was like 60 degrees outside, because if this was filmed in the South, knowing like how hot it gets, I can only imagine like how uncomfortable he might have been. But I did like that scene. Everything that showed like Lavelle trying to earn his passage or earn his way into like being the king of Zamunda.
I didn't like the circumcision scene though, because I thought they were really about to chop it. And I was just like, "Oh my God, no!"
Yeah, I was
and then,
like,
and then when that creature.
Yeah, what was that?
What the hell was he?
The hell was that?
Anyway, he
looking thing?
ate the end of the sweet potato, and I was just like, what?
And then he was like, "This is your grandfather's foreskin." And it's like y'all collect. Yeah,
and when he got to King, his foreskin was big around. I was like,
that's pretty much what I like. Do you have anything else that you liked?
Yeah, I also liked how they challenged old traditions and were trying to get rid of like sexist traditions, and how the oldest daughter eventually was able to become a heir of the Kingdom of the Moon. I really liked that. I thought that was dope.
Yeah, that was interesting. That definitely was good, and I liked how they ended it at the end of the movie, because you didn't really know if they were going to follow through with his son being the king, or if it was actually going to be his daughter, and they kind of let you know that it was going to be his daughter.
And but he wasn't excluded. He was going to get to be like an ambassador in America, and then they were going to be able to run things together as siblings.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was cool. So
versus making it a gender-based thing, it was all inclusive. So I really liked that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that was cool. So let's get into some of the things we didn't like, and then we'll give our overall rating. So the pre-funeral of James Earl Jones, I was like, what in the world is going on? Like, they brought out, like, who was it, like In Vogue and like some 90s, some other 90s like R&B acts. That wasn't like the singing and the dancing. That's not the thing that I had an issue with. My whole issue was like, okay, this might be James Earl Jones's last movie. So why is he in a casket? Like, of course, now obviously he agreed to that. Like, so he went in knowing what they were gonna do, and he obviously went up there and shot the scene and everything like that. But I thought that was just kind of macabre. I thought that was kind of weird. Like, it was just kind of. And then they actually showed him dying while he was standing up in the casket. I was like, how does that even work? Is he strapped in? Like what's going on right now? Like what did you think about that?
I don't know. I was just like, whatever. Some African traditions, whatever.
I did like that they had Morgan Freeman, because I was like, man, that sounds a lot like Morgan Freeman. Then they actually showed him. I was like, oh wow, that's kind of. I didn't expect him to pop up in this, but yeah, they did that a lot. Like having like a lot of these, well-known actors and celebrities like Rick Ross. Now I know they filmed at Rick Ross's house. So that made sense. That was probably part of the agreement. Like, okay, you want to film in my house, you got to put me in a couple scenes.
Yeah.
But they did that a lot with this movie, having like people just pop in and out like just randomly like that. I was like, it's like okay. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about that?
I thought that it could have been longer. I thought there could have been more things added in to like grasp the attention. It was really cool. I really liked the movie. I just thought that maybe it should have been something else more grabbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then
a few more scenes.
Yeah, and then too. So a big problem with this movie is, like I said at the beginning of the video, it's that it has to live up to the original. What made the original work is because it was coming to America. It was a movie about Akeem going to another country. It was sort of like a fish out of water story. He had never been there, didn't know anything about the United States. And he was there to find his true love. So it was a romantic comedy, right? Yeah. This movie, the romance was there, but it's like, unlike the first movie where you really had to see Akeem earn Lisa's like love, because Lisa was supposed to be like this in this elevated position as the daughter of McDowell's, the McDonald's owner. So she was in like this ownership position. And Akeem was just like, even though he was a prince, so he was technically more elevated than she was, she didn't know that. And he was kind of pretending to be like this fast food employee, like mopping the floors and things like that. So he
knew that love was genuine.
Right, exactly. And he actually had to work for that. He actually had to work for her to actually genuinely be into him.
Especially since another guy had her attention at
exactly.
that time, and he was also a millionaire.
Exactly, Eric LaSalle. So yeah, like. In this movie, there's a romance with Akeem's son, but it's like at times I didn't know, I didn't really believe it that much, if that makes sense. And then too, like the comedy aspect, like I said, the first movie was a romantic comedy. This movie tried to be that, but the romance wasn't as strong, I don't think, and the comedy wasn't as strong. Like. That first movie is so funny. You can go back and watch that movie now and still laugh at it, knowing the jokes before they come, right? This one, the comedy wasn't as strong, and I think a lot of people who you see online, kind of being really critical of the movie, I think went in expecting something funnier than what they actually got. And I've seen some people say that the movie is like 30 years too late. Like they really kind of should have done this like years ago. Like, but what did you think about that?
Maybe I'm just goofy. I thought it was hilarious. I laughed at just about everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. So you thought, what did you think about the romantic aspect of the movie? Did you think it, how do you think it matches up with the original?
Well, as far as both Akeem and then his son, like, falling in love with, like, true love, somebody who they could come together, and not just in a sexual way, but also in a way where they could talk and actually have a conversation. I think that was similar, because, you know, Akeem was with Lisa, you know, they had conversations, they spent time together, she was able to think her mind freely, and also the son, the bastard prince, and the groomer, they were able to actually have conversations too, and I thought that was similar. And then the fact that they both were supposed to have arranged marriages to women who didn't necessarily think on their own, they were just basically programmed robots.
Right.
You know, so that romance part was the same. As far as with the son, though, it just seemed like the romance part happened really quick. It's just like they had a few encounters, and then they're madly in love and ready to get married. Like,
right.
It didn't seem like enough time would have passed for them to have fallen madly in love. But
and then the issue that I had with it is that I didn't really feel like he earned it. Like in the first movie, you could really see that Eddie Murphy like earned that relationship.
Exactly.
And that's why I brought up like the power dynamic between like Lisa and Akeem. But in this one, because the power dynamic is flipped, and Akeem's son isn't coming in as just like some regular dude mopping the floors. He's coming in as
a prince.
As the prince.
And she's just a groomer who has dreams of having a barber shop, but women aren't allowed to own businesses, so she literally has no power. She's just at the
So
at the mercy
she's not
of
gonna say
whoever.
No.
Yeah,
She's not going to say no.
Exactly. I wouldn't.
Exactly.
Like that lady in the first movie. I'll really marry if you're really a prince. I'll marry you.
So I mean that's the thing. Like it's good, but it could have been better. So, but I don't want to stay on.
But
that
I definitely liked
long.
it. I definitely recommend it. It's a go-to for if you want to watch a good movie.
Yeah, I
enjoy it.
I don't want to stay on that too long, but then I had something else. Coming to America or Coming to Zamunda. So, the first movie is called Coming to America, obviously because most of the movie takes place in America. In this movie, most of the movie takes place in Zamunda. Not America. He kind of just goes back to America
to get his son
a couple times
after he runs off.
Right. The first time when he first found out about his son to find him, and then he goes back a second time after his son runs off. And that's pretty much it.
But not a lot happens in those scenes. They're relatively quick.
Exactly. They're not really long scenes. Even like the second time he went back, it kind of even felt like it was a little drawn out. How they kept showing Akeem looking for where to go, and it felt like it was dragging out a little bit. So that's a minor thing. That's not a big issue. That's just something that I wrote in the notes because I thought it was kind of weird. But did you have a problem with that or no?
No, I didn't. It probably would have made more sense to be Coming to Zamunda, but it's whatever.
Exactly.
They're trying to keep it as similar to the classic movie as possible, so I understand that aspect too.
Yeah, and while I did like the acting for the most part, I don't really think anybody put in like a bad performance. Something that I did notice, like Arsenio Hall, like if you guys watch the movie, there are a couple of scenes where you can tell almost that he hasn't acted in a while. Like you can tell that he hasn't been in like a movie in a while, because if you're looking at his eyes, you can see that his eyes are not there are two scenes. The scene where Wesley Snipes is introduced, if you look at Arsenio Hall's eyes when the camera is like behind Wesley Snipes' head, Arsenio Hall is not actually looking at Wesley Snipes. He's looking down. And I'm wondering if he's like reading something, because sometimes when they do with like movies is they put like boards off camera where if someone doesn't either know their lines or doesn't know what's going to happen next, they can kind of like read off the board, but you don't actually see that on camera. I just noticed that his eyes were like kind of like looking elsewhere. And then I also noticed in the scene where they first go back to the United States, to Queens, and when they go into the barbershop where Akeem and Simi look at each other, you can see Arsenio Hall look off camera. You can literally see him like look at something in the background. That's just something that I noticed, and I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that it's like a streaming movie or something like that, or I don't know how many takes they had to get some of the scenes right. But it only happened in a couple scenes that I noticed, and it's easy to miss. So a lot of people probably might not have even noticed that. I've done like acting work, so I noticed it, like small acting work, not anything serious.
Or his eyes just might be slow to react. They are getting old. I'm just joking. You can tell all their ass is getting old in the movie. Like, damn. That's a big difference between the two movies.
I didn't think about that. That is a big difference, though. And then, like, okay, so I don't want to make a big deal about this, but because there were certain things that I liked that he did. I'm talking about Akeem's son, played by Jermaine Fowler. There were certain things that I liked that he did, which I mentioned earlier, like the coming of age stuff, the Zamundan history, stuff like that. But one of the things that I was trying to figure out when I was watching this movie is, okay, whose movie is this? Like, whose story is this really? Who is the plot really following? And that is really Akeem's son. Like, he's the one really with the character arc, not so much Akeem. And he has to kind of carry the movie. And at parts, I kind of felt like there might have been a slight miscast. But that's kind of just how I felt it. I didn't really buy into that too much. I don't know if you felt the same way though. How did you like not just the acting in general, but specifically the lead actor?
I agree with you about that. It just kind of shifted towards him a little bit. It kind of started where it was kind of focused on Akeem and then his family that he made with Lisa, and then all of a sudden you have this bastard son, and there was this flashback with Sammy got him with some crazy lady in Queens who drugged him.
Leslie Jones, yeah.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden he has his son, bastard son, like the creature says. So
you gonna call her creature? But yeah, I mean that's why I said I liked the daughters better, because I think if the plot had been based around them, I probably would have liked it a little bit more.
Yeah, because they're the ones who were born in Zamunda and grew up in Zamunda, so I would have liked to know a little bit more about what it was like to grow up in Zamunda. And be the daughters of Akeem and Lisa,
And yeah,
and we kind of don't see any of that.
It could have been a story that followed his daughters going to America. So maybe it's called Coming to America, but it's Akeem and Simi going with his daughter, or maybe not even all of his daughters, maybe his eldest daughter, his oldest daughter, and they go to America, and that's where they spend most of their time, and she's learning about American customs, sort of like the only problem with that is that people would compare her a little bit too much to Eddie Murphy, and if she's not a comedian, I don't know if she has like comedic chops or not. That might not have worked, but I think that's a way that they could have made this movie without like shoehorning in this whole bastard son storyline, which at times I didn't really buy into a whole lot like that. Like I said, there are things that he did in the movie that I liked. So like overall, I'm not saying the overall performance wasn't good. It's just that I think I liked his daughters more than I liked him, if that makes sense, or at least Akeem's daughters. That's what I mean. But then the last thing that I have here, and then like you can share your final thoughts, and then we can wrap it up with the review. I felt like the movie paid homage a little bit too much to the original, like the barbershop dudes, like, and I've seen a lot of people make this argument or say this online, where it's like in the original that came out in 1988, a whole generation ago, these guys look like they were like in their 70s and 80s back then, and then now it's like, decades later, and they only look like they aged by like 5 years, and it's like, how are these guys actually still living?
Yeah, how
are they still alive? But that they put them in there because they're paying homage to the original, and I'm like, okay, they did that a little bit too much in my opinion, and like that's like they kept making references. It like even so much so like they kept showing like clips. They did this in like a couple scenes where they would show clips from the original movie. You know what I'm saying? Like they actually took out whole scenes from the original, not a whole scene, but like chunks of the whole scene from the original and put it into this one. What did you think about that?
I didn't really have a problem with it while I was watching it. I've kind of just viewed them as flashbacks.
Okay. I mean, like I said, it wasn't. It's not something that I care too much about.
I did notice that it was quite a few of them.
Yeah, and I just felt like the movie should stand on its own. But see, that's the problem with doing a sequel to a movie that came out decades ago. That came out back in 1988. You have to remind people, and I think they sometimes feel like they have to remind people about
what happened in the first movie,
the things that made the first movie really good. So they're repeating a lot of the same stuff, and I think that kind of,
and I think it was kind of make certain parts of the movie relevant to the whole idea that they were trying to tie into. It was kind of flashback on what happened in that movie, so it's a reflection of what's happening in the current movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what would you rate the movie? What did you think overall?
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, until we come up, we're gonna come up with a rating system. We haven't actually done that yet, but yeah, for this first review, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10.
10 being the excellent, 1 being absolutely hated.
Trash. Yeah.
I would give this movie a 8.
Okay. I think I would probably give it. Okay, so here's the thing. Before I give my rating,
it made me laugh. I'm goofy, so I liked it.
It's a good movie. Like, if you go in not expecting to laugh a whole lot, which most people aren't because it's coming to America, people are expecting to laugh a lot. If you go in not expecting to laugh a whole lot, you're going to probably come away thinking it's a decent movie. If you go in expecting the original or something close to the original in terms of like comedy, that's where I think a lot of people would give it like a lower rating. So I'm going to go somewhere in between because I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a good comedy, right? So I'm going to give it, I'm not going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it 7, which I think is fair. 7 is saying, to me, everybody might consider a 7 different. Like, to me, when I say a 7, I'm saying the movie is okay, it's decent, it's not great. Anything between like a 6 or a 7, I think, because I was really honestly about to say 6.8. But I was like, okay, that might be a little too low. So I'm going to give it a 7 because I thought it was a good movie. It was a decent movie. I just don't think it lives up to the original. And I think it relies a little bit too much on the original. And that's pretty much it. Like, I'm not going to be watching it as much as I watched the original. The original is a movie, like I said, you can watch. I've seen the original over a dozen times, like a lot of times. I won't be seeing this sequel nearly as much as I saw the original, but I could see myself watching it over again with someone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, I could see myself watching it again. I've already watched it like 3 times.
Well, that's pretty much all we have to say about this. Do you have any more parting thoughts before we give it in? Wrap it up?
Nope, I think we about covered everything.
All right, well,
let us know what you think about the movie after you watch it and leave us a comment below.
Yep. Like, share, and subscribe, and you will be seeing more content from me, Brian, and
Tisha
in the coming days. Thank you.